One of the most significant books in the English language has begun a nationwide tour with a stop in Oklahoma. The Folio Shakespeare Library in the nation's capital is sending William Shakespeare's first folio to all 50 states. Visitors to the Sam Noble Museum in Norman can now see the volume that's given us so many of the collected works of the immortal bard.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
400 years after his death, the world might not have the timeless words of William Shakespeare without the existence of the first folio, now on display at the Sam Noble Museum in Norman. University of Oklahoma Associate Professor of English David Anderson believes the first folio is one of the most important books in the world.
It contains many of Shakespeare's plays that we wouldn't otherwise have copies of. It was put together by two of his fellow actors in The King's Men, which was the company that he was a part of, the theatrical company, 7 years after his death. And so these men were able to find copies of the plays before they were lost to us altogether.
The folio, which might be considered the equivalent of today's coffee table book, contains 36 of Shakespeare's plays, including such well-known works as The Tempest, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and Macbeth. About 750 copies of the first folio were printed, of which 233 survive. The 82 copies in the Folio Shakespeare Library make it the largest such collection in the world. Some of the plays had been individually printed before, although collections of plays in book form were not common at the time. But Anderson says there was a ready audience for Shakespeare's works during his lifetime.
This book, the fact that people took the time and trouble to produce this book, something that would be so expensive to produce and to buy, and so complicated to make, that says they believed that there was money in Shakespeare, that people wanted Shakespeare, and that was proven to be true.
Oklahoma City University Associate Professor Amrita Sen says the first folio was not intended for a mass market.
It is meant for a more knowledgeable, wealthy collector. So this was initially meant as a collector's item, someone who would be aware of Shakespeare's literary genius, but also would again want to participate in making this purchase.
The plays retain their appeal today.
There are certain experiences of being human that are very universal and that translate from one time period to another, and that even though he was writing 400 years ago, I mean, people still fall in love. They still fall in love with people that their families think they shouldn't be in love with, for example.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?
Alyssa Mortimer is an associate professor in the OU School of Drama. Mortimer says there are good reasons why Shakespeare's plays are still relevant.
I tend to think it's because he writes about the big stuff. He writes about love, death, the crown. Some of it's very universal, but he does it in a way that somehow makes the characters feel very personal and very specific.
OU School of Drama director Tom Houston Orr agrees the works hold up well.
The stories are amazing. They're beautiful. You can't deny that the poetry is absolutely stunning. Some of them are perfect. Like Romeo and Juliet is a perfect play. There's not one thing wrong with it.
The appeal isn't limited to the English-speaking world.
Shakespeare is someone who speaks to the whole world. So in Bollywood, for instance, he is a huge phenomenon, and there are so many adaptations.
Sen says visitors to the museum now have a unique opportunity to engage with an important piece of history.
That we are acknowledging this as one of the important global historical documents which we need to witness and we need to pass forward to future generations.
The first folio will be on display at the Sam Noble Museum through January 31st.